Hi everyone, it's Sam, NFTstatistics, and this is your Proof Daily NFT Countdown. I hope you had a great weekend. Gonna dive into the SugarTown listing that's kind of started to take off a bit. FriendTech data, which remains very, very strong. A couple big art sales, including a Cryptopunk zombie. Let's dive right in, starting with a quick market overview. And the headline here is that volumes were down very, very bad. Down 30% from the prior all-time low, not all-time low, prior 2023 low. Blur had its lowest volumes since November of last year. OpenSea did less volume today or yesterday than they would typically do in fees in January of 2022. Remember that fees are just 2.5% of total volume. So really not a lot of volume happening in NFTs. Market share largely with Blur, 64% with Blur, kind of towards the low end of the range for where they have been, a little bit less dumping into bids over the weekend. Large cap index, despite the low volumes, large cap index was actually up a small bit. And this is something I've been saying a lot, is that the volumes, when Blur is such a dominant player, and basically throughout the existence of season 2, there have been more NFTs dumped into bids than bought, where people are picking the ones they want. So high volume has tended to correlate with lower down moves. So low volumes isn't necessarily bad for prices. You can see here that the large cap index was up a small bit, had a bit of strength in Milady, Moonbirds, and then weakness in Codas. In terms of the mid-cap index, basically flat over the weekend, down a small bit with strength in VV checks and weakness in cyber brokers. One project I did want to flag was Winds of Yawanawa, kind of rallied back above 8 ETH for a while over the weekend. Now, I think this tweet here from Mike, who lives in Germany, calls himself Warren himself on Twitter. He said that it looks like there was a Spaces where Rafiq Anadol was showing the prints that are going to come with each of the NFTs once the reveal happens. I think one of the coolest things about Winds of Yawanawa is that you actually get a physical print that will be sent to you. Now, since Winds of Yawanawa are videos, what will those look like? And here he was revealing what some of those prints will look like, and I'm sure they look absolutely incredible. So cool to see that. Wanted to talk about FriendTech volume as well. You can see in this red line, that's ETH NFTs, just how down bad ETH NFTs are, but FriendTech keys were actually, the volume in keys was actually down a fair bit as well. On Friday, they announced the total point allocations for the past week. And after that, you saw a little bit of weakness and basically just kind of coming down from that cliff that we were on Thursday and Friday of last week. If you look at this chart, it's pretty interesting. And this was posted by OX Levi, who's one of the biggest FriendTech accounts. What it basically shows is that people gave the most points, almost really highly correlated with people who had the most ETH on the platform locked into keys. Again, part of the incentive structure here is just to have people keep their ETH locked into keys. And the result is that prices, go higher and people tend to come up with pretty big unrealized gains. So I think that's kind of a theme that we've seen throughout. If you look at this chart here, this looks at the overall market cap for FriendTech and basically shows that we're hitting all-time highs. Now, overall market cap is a function of two things. One is price going higher, but then secondly, new accounts being added. As more accounts are added, the market cap grows, even if the other prices get higher. I personally want to spend some of this week working on different metrics for how you best analyze if people are making or losing money in FriendTech and like how that's evolving day by day. Something that I plan to spend a bit of today working on. In terms of users, this is users who bought keys for 0.03 ETH or higher. You can see, still well above the number of people buying NFTs, down a little bit over the weekend, but nothing to scoff at there. Let's move on to art projects. Looking here at, basically art projects over the past 24 hours, there is not a whole lot of volume. Only one project did 10 ETH or more. That's Unigrids by ZBlocks. Also had a squiggle for 9.5 ETH. Let's have a quick look at some of these sales. There was a ringer over the weekend. This was a few days ago, but a ringer for 27.38 ETH. This was a squiggle over the weekend, sold for 11.5 WETH. And then here is one of the Unigrids, 5.5 WETH. The other was for 4.5. So nice sales there. And then a Genesis by Claire Silver in art over in Braindrops, sold for 4.9 ETH. Second thing to talk about, the NounsDAO fork ends. We've talked about this at length. The fork basically allows people to turn in their noun and get ETH in return. 36 ETH per noun was basically the amount. What ended up happening was 472 people agreed to do it out of 844 total nouns. That means 56% of people forked, 44% of the people stayed. Now, I think as the DAO gets bigger, remember with nouns, there's a new auction every single day. So every single day, the number of total nouns out there gets bigger, normally means the number of users get bigger. That's just more votes, more people, more opinions, more visions that you have to mesh together. And I think as it got bigger and bigger, there became a little bit more dissent within in the group. I do not think that this fork is the end of DAOs, though. That's some of the headlines we were seeing, is the end of Nouns, the end of DAOs. It's almost even more impressive that 44% of Nouns decided to turn down 36 ETH and stick around. I almost think that's the more interesting stat here than the number of people who decided to leave. I mean, you end up here with well over 350 people who are sticking around and going to continue to build Nouns and decided that they would rather do that than get 36 ETH back. So that was pretty interesting. If you look at where the auctions have been settling since the fork, since people can no longer get that 36 ETH, you can see that the auctions are starting to decline. And this is something we saw, which almost led to the fork, is that the auctions were so much below treasury book value that people decided, hey, I really want my ETH back. We're starting to see a little movement in that direction again, but it's just at 34.2 ETH is where the auctions have been settling lately versus kind of the low 20s where we were when people really decided to push forward with this fork. We will continue to stay posted, or we will continue to keep track of how this evolves. Third thing to talk about, SugarTown had their mint. It was a free mint, and the NFTs completely took off. Let's have a quick reminder of what SugarTown is. It is from the Farmville creator Zynga. It is their first Ethereum NFT game. Here is a picture you can see at the bottom from the game that they're creating with pigs and chickens and cartoons and all sorts of interesting stuff. Again, Zynga, the maker of this, was Farmville's creator. They also were Words with Friends creators, so really big into social games, probably a company you've heard of. So very interesting and I think exciting to see what they're going to be able to do with Web3, with NFTs. Can they kind of get past this usability block that so many projects, so many games have had? Really interesting to see. But the mint came last week. Here they said, they said that it minted out, but of course it was free. But then it's more than one game. It's a platform for players to enter the world of Web3 gaming. Best part is it's happening sooner than you think. Who will reach the sugar board? So they've dropped a couple hints. We don't exactly know what is coming, but this is what the NFT looked like. It's still unrevealed. They're called auras. And if you look at the way they've traded, they started trading at 0.1 ETH at the very beginning, and now they've traded all the way up to 0.4 ETH. So a nice 4X, even for people who got this in secondary early stages. So clearly something going very, very well for this, and another exciting thing to look out for. Fourth thing to talk about, Opepens teamed with VVD, Vincent Van Gogh, and they also launched another set of art, which did not pass the threshold of getting 2,000% buy-in. Let's have a quick look. Here is the one they did with VVD. It was called No Pepin, and they said reveal after vote. The first time they've ever done this, they didn't actually show you the art when you opted in, but they did get sufficient people who opted in to see what it would be. And then if you actually look at what it looked like in the end, it was basically a blank canvas with a very subtle Opepin that you can hardly see kind of etched into each of the colors. That was it. You can see in this image here where it shows the demand on the side, the demand was well over the 2,000% threshold that they need, but kind of an interesting concept. This is the green one. Again, you have to look in, kind of shake your head and look at it from different angles to see the Opepin, but they're saying that the token itself is the art at some level. But who knows? With so many different art forms out there that you have to create for Opepin, I think they're doing 200, something like that. You really have to have all sorts of experiments and try to do things that resonate with just totally different people. After that, they came out and said, here's number 619. It was this art on the left with this black spiral. I think it is super, super cool, but it did not end up meeting the threshold for people opting in. So they went over to this one on the right where they did a very similar concept, but with a bit of motion and with a bit of color. I think this one also very cool, but currently the demand isn't where it needs to be. It has to get up to 2,000. There's still time. Hopefully it'll get up there. I think this is a cool Opepin, but we will see what happens with that. Last thing to talk about, let's talk about a few notable sales, both in PFPs as well as in the art space. First is this zombie, a Cryptopunk zombie, sold for 420 ETH. Yeah, massive amount of money. But when you look at actual zombie sales in the past, it is a low sale relative to where zombies have actually traded. Here are the past 4 zombie sales. You can see 550, but before that was 857, more than double the price of what we just saw. That 857 was at the very beginning of 2023. Then there was a 980, then an 1160. So almost 3x. Yeah, 4 sales it was almost 3x the price that we just saw. So Grails also seeing some weakness overall in pricing, but still, a 420 ETH sale in this market, definitely something that we can't scoff at all. Then there was a King Nakamigo with the crown, sold for 13.69 ETH. I said King Sanders because he's got that Barry Sanders jersey. At first, given the weakness in Nakamigos, given the weakness in NFTs, given the weakness in PFPs, given the weakness in Grails, I assumed this was some sort of kind of weird trade. I wanted to check, but a lot of fees, 5% royalties were paid, something like 0.7, there were I don't know the exact number, but it was a healthy amount of money that went towards fees. So overall, this was clearly a real sale. Then I looked at King's Crown, and it's generally been a grail trade. If you look at prior sales, you've had sales at 6, 6.9, 8.9, 10 ETH. So there you have it. You never know what NFT is going to resonate, people. Congrats to the buyer and seller of that Barry Sanders King NFT. In the one-of-one space, this piece, Door number 7 by Matt Kane, sold for 22.5 ETH. This is part of a broad series of one-of-ones that Matt Kane has. He said he created it as an extension of investigating the door as a symbol in both the artist's life and the broader culture. Matt Kane creates generative paintings using his self-created digital studio software. So this image really does have similar look and feel to a lot of the Matt Kane work. Remember, he is the artist behind Gazers. And in terms of other sales that we have seen for the doors, they've been at 28 ETH. This one sold earlier for 25.3. This one in the lower left was the most recent one, sold for 18.2. So this is a higher sale than the last one, which is always nice to see. Also in one-of-one space, this piece, Checkmate in Surreal display by Botto, sold for 8.47 ETH. Strong price for Botto, but they continue to churn out great sales despite the bear market. So congrats there. And then lastly, wanted to touch on this piece called 2 Pages 2 by ArtemisAndArts, sold for 3.63 ETH. The buyer was iCliff00. And this piece has a very similar look and feel to a lot of the other pieces that ArtemisAndArts has done. You can see a lot of them here, and they've always kind of sold in this 2 range. He did have one above 4 ETH, but 3.63 ETH is a great sale for this market and relative to the prices this artist has had in the past. That is all from me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, give us a like. Tell us what you think in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back tomorrow and most weekdays. Because of Marfa, I'm not going to be here every single day this week, but we'll be back tomorrow with another show. Have a great day.